I entered the Prove Mike Wrong challenge, which was put on by Mike Lindell, the man behind MyPillow, and he claimed that he had digital proof, files, data that showed that the 2020 election had been hacked, that votes had been illegally manipulated to be transferred from Joe Biden to Donald Trump.
From which state?
Well, he was saying at one the explanations kept changing a bit, but he finally decided on China, that the country of China had hacked into American voting machines to switch the votes.
But in which state did he use as the example? Did they use Arizona?
Well, actually, the challenge, he's been challenging the votes around the country, Arizona, Georgia, Michigan, but he claimed that he had data from the entire internet that showed packets changing votes throughout the entire country.
What did he have?
What he had, actually, was a bunch of Word documents that were not very cleverly disguised to look like sophisticated data. He also had a spreadsheet that also basically said, here's the votes Biden should have gotten and Trump should have gotten, and here's the votes we actually gave them, which was one of the issues that I pointed out in my arbitration, which because I had proved that it was fake, I met the challenge, and I asked for the $5 million reward that he offered. He refused. We went to arbitration. One of my arguments was, if a criminal or a country were to change votes, they would not give out the information, here's what the vote should have been, here's what we changed them to. But he claimed that was one of the things he had found. So criminals don't usually work that way. They don't leave very obvious clues saying, hey, I changed the votes. I guess nobody's going to figure it out. But that's what he was claiming. So it was to be honest, a very amateurish attempt to claim that the votes were changed. Now, I think Mike Lindell may believe, or at least has come to believe, or at least thinks that everybody would believe it. It's not really clear, but it's obvious. It was obviously bogus data.
Do you believe that the election irregularities skewed, we're talking about 2020 election, do you believe that they skewed results in different states?
Well, I believe, first of all, that there was definitely voter fraud. I think that every human endeavor involves fraud. I work as an expert witness in litigation, and every case I've worked on had some party doing something unethical, at the very least, if not illegal. Was there enough fraud? Were there enough votes given illegally or unethically from one party to another to change the entire election results? I don't know. And one thing that concerns me is Mike Lindell's effort, his obviously bogus effort to show voter fraud, is hindering actual investigations into voter fraud, into real voter fraud.
As a conservative, are you conflicted? Do you feel personally conflicted on this matter?
I don't feel conflicted because I think, first of all, I'm in favor of the truth, no matter what the truth is. Mm-hmm. But second of all, as a conservative, I would like to see better voter integrity laws, voter examinations. And by having a fake examination, a fake claim of voter fraud, you are hurting the real investigations that might actually show voter fraud.
Do you believe that President Trump is mistaken in his claims that he was cheated out of the election?
Well, what I can say is, so far I haven't seen evidence. I think it's possible, but nobody has presented evidence. And I've looked for evidence. I think it would be interesting to find evidence. I think we should continue to look for evidence. But the only evidence I've seen generally comes from the efforts of Mike Lindell, and I know that Mike Lindell's efforts are not legitimate.
The arbitration ruled in your favor. What are your expectations on him paying $5 million?
Well, I think it's very unlikely that he'll pay the $5 million, mostly because he's being sued by Dominion Voting Systems and Smartmatic, which are two voting machine companies. Mm-hmm. And unfortunately, he's been making these allegations which he knows or should know are not true. Now, maybe the machines did have a problem, but he hasn't shown it. And so I think he's going to lose those cases, which means he's going to be out of money, which means I will probably never see my $5 million.
But with your experience in forensic analysis, do you feel inspired to go in and look at some of the 2,000 Mules style irregularities beyond what Mike Lindell did?
Well, let me say I've just been contacted by a Republican official in Nevada who wants me to help with voter integrity, ensuring voter integrity. I would be very glad to help with any investigation, but the problem is I actually went to Republican donors throughout the country and Republican politicians and said Mike Lindell's data is fake, but I have some leads on possibilities that may be correct, that may actually show fraud, but I need the funding to evaluate. And because of Lindell, I believe, nobody wants to fund this because they don't want it to go down a rabbit hole in some fantasy investigation. And so I think that's how Lindell has hurt this process, because the money that would have otherwise gone into real investigations has gone into a sinkhole, and nobody wants to put more money into that.
Or the people who you have asked thus far, but might there still be a possibility? I mean, it's a big country of Republicans.
True, and I'm open to that. I have been continually contacting people, but again, the response has not been positive so far.
How about Arizona, though? Aren't there improprieties in that state, Carrie Lake's election 2022?
I just don't know. I know if there are improprieties, it's very unlikely to be in the voting machines. It's much more likely to be in ballot harvesting, fake ballots. I do believe that goes on. I don't know the extent of it. I think it needs to be examined, but I doubt very much that it occurs in the voting machines themselves.
Okay. Anything else we should mention?
One thing I like to mention is that my winning this lawsuit should, I hope, inspire people to come forward with the truth. And I've worked in legal systems throughout the world as an expert witness. And I can tell you that I still think that our system is the best. It's not perfect, but and it doesn't always come to the right decision. But I can tell you that America is one of the few countries where the legal system lets David take on Goliath and possibly win. So if you're out there for truth, if you think you have a good case and it's righteous, you've got to find the right representation, you've got to get the right funding, and you've got to have the perseverance to stick it through. But at the end, there's a good chance, not 100%, but a good chance that justice will be served. And I think justice was served in my case.
Do you think, is there any conference with any of the runners-up in these cases that you might check with and see if you can find better ways of patching the holes? Well,
I think when this broadcast goes live, then I hope people contact me. Unfortunately, the further in time we get from an actual election, the more difficult it is to prove the fraud. And I think maybe the best thing we can do at this point is put in place guards, safeguards, thank you, for ensuring that the next election is fair.